Hey folks, it's John with KGTropicals.com bringing you another episode of KGQandA. I apologize, I know it's been a few days. We've been dealing with kind of a crisis situation going on here. We've been left in a position where we have no choice but to find a new supplier for our fish. I know, it's shocking and it wasn't pleasant for us either, but again, like I said, we were left with no choice. So, not going to bore you with any details. We'll get through it and everything's going to be fine, but definitely have to get an episode of KGQandA done for you because I've gotten 15 or 20 messages. John, where's the videos? I was getting emails 2 days after my last video went out. How come you haven't been putting out videos? I don't know. People go crazy. But let's get to it. Let's talk about some of these questions. I'm going to try to get through quite a few of them today. By the way, if you want to get your questions answered on this series, there's the email address right there to send your questions to, and we will get them answered for you. Not going to be able to do every single one, but I'm going to try. All right, let me get into this first one here. I'm doing this on my tablet. It's running a little bit slower. This email is from Chris. Hey John, he spelled my name wrong. It's John. Shame on you. Is there a reason the tanks in your store have different colored backgrounds? Are they painted or do you use something else? Yes, they are painted. Even this one back here, I bought this one this way. This one's painted black. When we moved in, all of the 20-gallon tanks that we bought from Tennessee and brought into this store, we painted all of them, some of them blue, some of them orange to match kind of our theme. Our company logo is blue and orange, so we stuck with that. We just used acrylic paint and roll it on the back. Takes a couple of coats. It's not a big deal, and it's very easy to do. So you can do any color you want, and it works out really well. I'm pretty sure I got the idea from that, or how to do that, from Waru Joey, the king of DIY. He has a video, I'm pretty sure, about painting backgrounds, but if it wasn't from him, then I apologize to Joey, but I'm pretty sure that that came from him, where I got the idea from that. Okay, Nathan, this has nothing to do with fish. Big fan of the show. John, what is the tattoo on your arm and what does it say? He's talking about this one. This is actually my daughter's name, Skylar, S-C-H-U-Y-L-E-R. It is my daughter's first name, my middle name, and my mother's maiden name, and her date of birth is also on my wrist there, so I don't forget it. I've talked about getting Lisa's kids' initials on this arm, but Lisa won't let me do that yet. And you know what? It is one of those things. As soon as you get somebody's name tattooed on you, things go wrong. So her ex has her name in 2 different places tattooed on him. So it doesn't always work out. So that's probably why she doesn't want me to do that. But our relationship is very strong, and I don't see any threat there. But, you know, maybe someday she'll let me do that. So thank you, Nathan. That was cool. All right. Jamie. I'm not going to say your last name because I don't want to botch it. G'day, John and Lisa. Love your videos and your passion for the hobby. Been following your channel from the beginning. My question is regarding my cichlid tank. I currently have a 3x1x1 tank. I guess that's a 20-gallon. Very small, but I'm upgrading very soon. The tank currently has an FX6 hooked up to the front. Whoa! So I can seed the filter and make the whole process quicker when it comes to the upgrade. Videos on YouTube channel. Okay. The tank I'm getting is a 5x2x2. Basically, what is the best way to make the transition easier and less stressful for the fish and also myself? I've never done this before and would love to hear some advice from an expert like yourself. I was going to put the filter on the new tank, put half of my current water in, and also some of the substrate. Okay. The transition is not as stressful for the fish as people may think. We all panic when it comes to our fish, and we want to treat them so delicately, like they're little feathers and little flowers. And you know what? It makes sense to do that, but at the same time, these fish are very resilient. They're not going to get so stressed out from moving them from one tank to another that they're going to die. I mean, that just doesn't happen. In here, we move fish around all the time. And we don't necessarily do the acclimation procedures like you would expect, because all the water in here is the same. It's all the same temperature, so we can move them from tank to tank and it's not a big deal. So moving them from one tank to the next, it's common sense. Just move them. It's not a big deal. Moving your water from tank A to tank B doesn't make any sense because the bacteria is not in the water. So don't do that. It gives nothing to the new tank. The bacteria is on the surfaces, not in your water column. So don't even bother with that. You'll be wasting time. Taking substrate from your existing tank and putting it into the new one, now that makes a lot of sense because again, those are materials that the bacteria is going to grow on and transfer into the new tank. So that makes sense. But the water, don't waste your time with that. That doesn't, it doesn't do anything for you. But again, moving fish, not as stressful as we all make it out to be. Some species of fish, I guess, could be more sensitive than others, but these African cichlids are tough little guys and they will be fine as long as you're not taking them from a tank that's 80 degrees and putting them into a tank that's 20 degrees. I mean, common sense will tell you what not to do, but moving them from tank to tank is not going to hurt them. All right, I'm talking kind of fast because I want to get through a few of these questions today. My name is Jesse Garcia from New York, and I like your videos. They are very informative. Thank you. I have a 75-gallon tank with various Mbuna, as well as some peacocks and haps. My question, what non-cichlid tank mates would you recommend in my tank? I have a cuckoo catfish, featherfin catfish, a Trinidad pleco, and a royal pleco. Everybody gets along, and I'm wondering what other tank mates I can put in because I'm going to upgrade to a 125-gallon tank. Just keep Africans in there. I mean, what do you need to mix other things in there for? You've got some other things. Cuckoo catfish, they're from Lake Tanganyika, so they're not an African cichlid, but they go well. And all of your plecos and stuff like that, they do fine. What do you want to add fish that are non-Africans for? There's like 1,700 different varieties of African cichlids between the 3 lakes. So just pick other Africans, keep it simple. I guarantee you there's going to be something that you're going to find. I hope you're not asking me if you can put Oscars or Firemouths or Jack Dempseys in there because I'm so sick of that one. But I don't think that's what you're asking. Peacocks, haps, Mbunas, Tanganyikans, Victorians, I am one of those guys. I believe they all mix together fine, and I proved that in my 240. So find other Africans that you like and put those in there. Don't mix South Americans in there. It's just too much of a headache. Okay. John Johnson. How about that? Hello, my name is John. I live in Perth, Western Australia. Cool. My question is to do with sponge filters. I have a fish room and all my tanks are hooked up to one air pump. As I expand my room and add more tanks and sponge filters, the air pressure is dropping on all the tanks. I would like to know what is a suitable amount of air flowing through a sponge. I don't want to drop the pressure down that far so they don't filter the water. Can you show us the amount you have flowing through the filter? So I'm not really set up to do that right now, John, but I can tell you this. My preference, I like there to be enough activity in the sponge filter to where the bubbles come up and actually agitate the surface of the water. If it's just barely any bubbles, then it's not really doing its job. I feel like when there's bubbles coming up to the point where it agitates the surface all the way across, unless it's a 8-foot long tank, most of your tanks that you're talking about, I'm assuming, are going to be relatively small tanks, 20 gallons, 10 gallons. So it's not, you don't have to have the water turned up outrageously high to keep the water moving all the way across the top. That's what I like to do. And it works out really well. And it is enough air moving through the system to allow the filter to actually function properly. So I hope that helps with it. You know, you don't want water bubbling so hard that water's flying out of your tank. That's a little bit absurd, but as long as it's moving the water and you have good bubbles coming up, then the filter should do its job and you should be fine. So hope that helps you. And I have 180 tanks hooked up to one blower in here. That's what makes that noise that you hear in the background. And I've had the same scenario. I mean, I've got one spot where I have 17 outlets within a 2-foot span to serve our egg tumblers. And even adding all of those, the air is still enough to be able to be distributed properly throughout all of the tanks. So you might have to fine tune it a little bit, turn some up, turn some down, but you'll get it. And as long as that water's moving, you're doing good. Okay, this is a long one, so yeah, I'm gonna skip it. All right, last one, 10:16. That's the time, in case you're wondering. If you're ever wondering, I have a little screen and the time's on there. If you ever see me go, oh, I'm looking at the time to see how far we've got. All right, Daniel. What's up, John? It's Daniel, aka 210 Snowman 210 from Clash of Clans. Let me tell you about this guy. I talk about Clash of Clans all the time, but in Clash of Clans, you have different levels of accomplishment. And this guy is at the top of that chain. Daniel is somebody that visits us in our clan from time to time, and he is one of the top guys in the game. So he's kind of a Clash of Clans celebrity, so it's really cool, and we enjoy having him come around. Hadn't come around in a while. Where you been? But anyway, let's get to his question. My question is, I had a power outage. How long can my canister filter beneficial bacteria survive? I had a hang on the back filter that was accidentally unplugged once I plugged it back in, and got a rotten egg smell that came from it and killed all my fish. It was a horrible experience. What steps do I have to take to prepare my filter to start again if it's been so long? If it's been a really long time, then you need to start over because of what you just said. I mean, if it's just sitting in there stagnant, you're getting all kinds of funkiness growing in that filter, and you absolutely don't want that rotten egg smell. I get it. I've had that. I've seen it. Sometimes what people will do is they'll unplug their filter and they think they're doing the right thing. They'll say, well, I'm just going to set it up on the shelf and keep the water in it. That way the bacteria doesn't die off and get dried out. And they let it sit there for 6 months and then hook it up again, and it's terrible. Don't do that. You need to keep water circulating in that filter just like you would in your tank. So if you have a canister that you're not going to use for a while and you want to know how to keep it fresh, well, it's got to be running. If it's not running, if it's a couple of days, it shouldn't be a big deal. But if it's going to sit there for a really long time, then you might as well empty it out, clean it all out, and when you hook it back up again, start over from scratch, because otherwise it's going to be pretty nasty and you're going to get that rotten egg smell, and that is not a pretty thing in your tank. So, you know, keep the water moving in it just like you would in your tank. Even if you have to take your canister and hook it up, I know it sounds stupid, hook it up to a 5-gallon bucket so that water's circulating through it and moving. It should keep it that fine for as long as you want it to. But don't just let it sit there. A couple of days is fine, but don't let it go too long because they will die off. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do it. We got one more here real quick. From Gal Beats. Hello, John. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for sharing your knowledge. Okay, thank you. I'm not being rude, but I'm going to move on to the question. My situation is I've just added a new frontosa to my tank. Today is his 3rd day in the tank. When I'm feeding my Africans, and he lists all that he has, peacocks and haps take all the food from the laid back frontosa. I've tried different types of fish food, floating, sinking pellets, but they still take it all, and the frontosa then searches the substrate for any. Okay, this is a common problem with frontosas because they're kind of slow moving, laid back little loafs, and it's very common for them when they're in a new environment. They do take a little while to adjust. It's been my experience that they take a little while, and we've had a couple of customers buy frontosas from us and come back to us a few days later with the exact same problem. Now, what I can tell you is this: they do take a little while to adjust, and I didn't look at the date, but I mean, it's probably been a while since you sent this to me, so they've probably adjusted by now. But what I have found is that they will eventually adjust, and they'll fit right in with everybody else. In my 240, my 4 fronts that I have in there are just as active and aggressive at getting food as any of the other fish in there. So they'll adjust and they'll be fine. There's not really a whole lot of tricks you can do to help them with that. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they'll just throw a ton of food in there to make sure that their fish get food, and that's a huge mistake. We all know that. So bear with them. If you haven't figured this problem out by now, which I hope you have, they'll adjust, and once they do, they might not be as fast as your Embonas and your you know, Taiwan reefs, but they're going to be able to get to the food, and they'll be just as aggressive trying to get that food as anybody else. So that's going to wrap this up. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions today. I need to get on the phone and get on the internet and find us a new place to buy some fish. So be praying for me. Hopefully that all works out. And before anybody does it, there's going to be people in the comments that are going to say, what about Southeast Cichlids? What about Quinn's? What about Live Fish Direct? Those are great companies. They have great fish, but those are retailers, not wholesalers. So I can't buy fish from Butch and sell them for the same price. That would just be stupid. So what I'm looking for is wholesalers. So before you put out your recommendations like that, consider who they are. They're retailers, not wholesalers. I got to find me a wholesaler, and I got to do it quick because we're running out of fish, and if we run out of fish, then we're going to have a big problem. So thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you on the next episode.